Christie is the mom, Curt stepdad, of Jana Mackey, who was killed in a domestic violence incident 2.5 years ago. And Curt, we left going into the break talking about some of the legislative things that you have been working on through the state of Kansas. And the legislative process is slow, but I know through that effort you've learned a lot.
Yeah, Christy and I got involved soon before the legislative session last year. We started working with the Fatality Review Board. There's a Domestic Violence Governor's Task Force, and they had been trying to push a bill which is called the DV Tag Bill, and it had very little luck with that. And what we shared with that group was that, you know what, you need to put a name and a face to that group. And so we decided to help them with that piece of legislation, and we did that. One of the things that we had going for us is that Jana was a lobbyist for 3 years in Topeka for women's issues. And so every legislator knew Jana. So when we put Jana's face to this bill, it spoke personally to many legislators. And we spent a lot of days in Topeka plugging away in the offices of different legislators, both on the House and Senate side, and we were able to help get that bill passed. That bill will go into effect July 1 of this year, coming up, and it's called the Domestic Violence Tag Legislation Bill.
And what exactly does that do?
What that does is that every crime that the underpinning was domestic violence in some way, it will tag that case. And so a offender will be tagged, and it will show throughout the system that we're dealing with a domestic violence offender, and that it also requires an assessment be done of anybody that commits a domestic violence offense, and that they have to be, and that assessment has to be implemented, and the courts will require offenders to go through treatment programs. At this point, there's only one law that relates to domestic violence in the state, and it's domestic violence battery. Well, we know that there's a lot of different types of crimes that the underpinning was domestic violence, and now we can track those people. We know that violence escalates over time, and that if someone commits a harmful crime in domestic violence, we know that there's been a previous track record, and we want to catch that earlier on in the system. And so this is by far the most comprehensive domestic violence legislation ever proposed and passed in Kansas, and we know that's going to have some bugs to work out, but we're really excited about the potential of this law.
Curt, when you look at this, a lot of times it's that first report, though, that gets things started for somebody to maybe get better or improve, and a lot of times it just goes unreported until it's too late.
Exactly. One of the things we know is that most domestic violence offenses are not reported, and so that's the public awareness side, is the importance of making that happen and making sure that those in law enforcement and the criminal justice system know what we have here, and make sure the right people are getting services, as well as the offender getting some kind of treatment. And so that's pretty much not only about this law, but about our work in general. One of the things that we're doing in addition to this law is that Attorney General Steve Six asked Christy and I to co-chair the Domestic Violence Matters Intervention Advisory Board. And now we do that under the new leadership of Derek Schmidt. And we feel like we're making progress in creating, in supporting the domestic violence intervention programs around the state. And that's another whole level of work that needs to be done. But Kansas, in many ways, is leading the country in some of these areas. And so we're excited about that work as well.
Christy, I know some of the follow-up has been some local things that have happened, because you guys are involved in the community. You're involved in leadership studies at Fort Hays State University, and just involved in a lot of great programs around our community. This has tied in well with some of that, hasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, we feel that if you're teaching leadership studies, you probably should be living your discipline. And though this is a sad way for us to walk down that discipline in such an intentional way, it's certainly a perfect example. And so we feel like that we are living our discipline, and we're trying to model for our students what we want them to do and the kind of citizens we want them to become. And so it fits well with our discipline, and here locally that has manifested itself with a number of students that have been very involved in these issues. And so we have a class called the Leadership 310 class, where students go out and work on community projects. And we've had student teams that have worked on trying to get a more rapid response to sexual assault in our community with the Sexual Assault Nurse Examiners Program. And Hays Medical Center has really stepped up to the plate and has really provided some some unbelievable services in that regard. Through all of that, our students have really connected with the local Seroptimist organization, and Seroptimists here locally now are also helping in this regard on these issues. And one of the things that they're taking forward from a Leadership 310 project was the SART program, the Sexual Assault Response Team. We already had a SART program here in this community, but now there's been a number of people that have gotten involved even at a community level saying, you know, we're not the first responders of this community, but we are a community that cares, and we want to get together and make this something that is just not going to happen here in Ellis County. And if it does, we're going to have the best response in this state for that. And so the Seroptimist organization has gotten very involved. Now there's some leadership students that are working on, it's called the Sexual Assault Response Advocate, and it's still a wish at this point in time. That's not happened yet, but we're hoping to have a sexual assault response advocate housed on our campus, and we're working closely with NKDSVS because they would like to see this happen as well. And so this is just a project that right now students are working on, but because of that, we've had all kinds of programs go on that students have been involved with, that we've been involved with, and that many community organizations have been involved with, and we feel like that's the best way we can model what we are asking students to go become.
What's interesting, this has gone from the local level of doing programs here to really to the national scene where you've been traveling around the country telling this story.
Yes, we really have, though we really weren't seeking these opportunities out as people have heard our story, and as we've gone around this state and just around the country talking, then someone else calls to see if we would come speak to. Most of our speaking engagements have been on other college campuses to see if we would come talk to them about this issue in their community and on their campus.
Is this something that's an age-related thing, or is there a way to kind of catch this sooner in certain instances, Curt, where you've seen this? Obviously, you've had a chance to share stories and do different things, but how do you get to this early on versus later?
You know, there's a lot of work being done right now nationally about teen dating, and there are some things that can be done earlier. I can share with you, though, that one of the things I have been doing is that I have been meeting personally with group sessions of domestic violence offenders that have to attend court-ordered treatment programs, and they ask me to come in and meet with these men and share Jana's story. And one of the things that I have found about that is the wide array of ages. There are men that are 17 in that room, and there are men that are 70 years old in that room. And there are men that are unemployed to people wearing the $1,000 suits in that room. And it really cuts across all parts of society. And one of the things I've learned with my work with what I call it is men to men in my work, and that yes, things can be done at an earlier age, but this is being done by grandfathers as well as young men as well.
Christie, one thing you have to do, and I know if somebody is in a situation right now, there may be somebody watching this in one of these situations where they have some sort of abuse going on. What's the first step? What's a safe step for somebody to take to get out of that situation?
Well, my advice is to call our NKDSVS, the Northwest Kansas Sexual and Domestic Violence Services. They service an 18-county region in Northwest Kansas, and they are trained to know what to do, how to do it, how to help victims get out of this situation. We oftentimes talk about the victims being women, and in Kansas, actually about 95% are women. And so though we understand not all victims are women, most of them are. And so to call NKDSVS, talk to someone there who's been trained to help women out of these situations. They help give some moral support. They help give some realistic hints about things that you can do. And they also provide a shelter that if you just don't have any other options, you can come to the shelter. So that would be my best advice, is call someone who can help you that's been trained in that area.
You know, a lot of times that's what happens. No one ever makes that first call until it's too late to do something. Jana's campaign, if somebody wants to be involved with that, Curt, where do they go to find out more information? Because they don't want to leave this without giving people both a website and some follow-up so that they can get a hold of either of you and do some follow-up that way.
Thank you, Gary. Yeah, we would accept offers of help in a lot of different ways. We have a website. It's www.janascampaign.org. And you can also find us on Facebook. And we list different ways that you can help, to helping a friend, to helping our own campaign. We have volunteers doing all kinds of things, helping us track legislation, to to working with shelters, to you name it. And we have a page on our website that talks about how you can contact us, how you can get involved in what we're doing. And we have folks all over the country helping us and doing stuff. And obviously we have a lot of people in Hayes helping us and supporting us in a lot of different ways, and we strongly encourage that.
Very good. Jana Mackey was a wonderful young lady whose life was cut short because of domestic violence. And you guys are great parents to be following up and doing those things. Christy, thanks for being here. Curt, thank you for being here. You've been watching the ECTV Community Forum. Again, I'd like to hear your comments on today's program. Send them to me at gary.shorman@eaglecom.net, or you can reach us on Facebook at the ECTV Forum. Our program is brought to you by Hayes Med and Eagle Communications, our community connected.